This is Your Anxiety Toolkit, episode number 80. Welcome to Your Anxiety Toolkit. I'm your host, Kimberly Quinlan. This podcast is fueled by three main goals. The first goal is to provide you with some extra tools to help you manage your anxiety. Second goal, to inspire you. Anxiety doesn't get to decide how you live your life. And number three, and I leave the best for last, is to provide you with one big, fat virtual hug. Because experiencing anxiety ain't easy. If that sounds good to you, let's go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Your Anxiety Toolkit. I am so happy to be here with you and so just filled with joy that you would spend your very precious time with me. And I'm really very, very grateful for that because, again, your time is valuable and I am just so thrilled to get to spend some of that with you. So I was just reflecting, actually, as I went to record this, that I have a habit of always telling you guys what the weather is like. I'll say it's a really beautiful summer day, or it's a beautiful spring day, or it's raining, or there's fires, or whatever. And I wondered why I do that. Is it because I grew up on a farm where weather is so important to the success of a farm? Or it made me realize that it's actually an internal thing that I do often that I didn't even know I was doing, which is unconsciously connect with the present, right? I think that's me trying to just share okay, I'm here with you guys. Where am I? What's happening? And I'm really centering around just being with you guys. And it made me think I really should share that with you now that I've recognized and I'm aware of that, because I want to encourage you guys to get into that habit in really connecting with the present instead of always being very connected and fused with the future and the past. So let me give you an example of that right now so that you can really hear what it means and what that really is all about. So right now you may hear in the background some rain because it is raining. And the air is cool on my skin, right? So that's someone on my senses. And my fingers are actually very cold. And so I can hear the sound of the rain. I can smell the rain. I can see the rain. But what I can also see is this recording on my computer screen. And I see the waves of my voice, the volume of my voice going up and down, and that's actually very soothing. And I can also see the keyboard in front of me. Now, when I do a check-in, I can taste maybe some toothpaste, right? So that's another sense that we have, which is taste. And I can feel under my fingers the feeling of the keyboard under my fingers, right? So what have we done? We've checked in with sight, we've checked in with smell, we've checked in with what I hear, we've checked in with taste, and we're checking in with all of those present moment sensations. So I'm just going to give you an example of that right here and right now so that you guys can continue your practice with really being in the present and really connecting with that presence by inquiring with curiosity what's actually happening right now instead of what could possibly happen in the future. Okay? So just a little tip, little tool to start us off. Okay, so let's first go to the I Did a Hard Thing segment. Super, super important. One of my favorite things to do. So here I have one from Tegan this week. And she says, I was adamant that I wasn't going to my work Christmas party because I was anxious. But I pushed myself to go despite not being able to feel my arms due to anxiety. And I ended up having fun. Wow, Tegan, that is so cool, right? That is so brave, right? You were adamant to not go. So you were fully in no mind, right? And then you moved into yes mind and you went. And even though you had this really, really significant physical, discomfort happening. She said she couldn't feel her arms, right? Which is a normal response to anxiety. The blood in our body just floods to the center so it can prepare to run. But she didn't run, right? She didn't run. She stayed, and she actually ended up having fun. And what a win. So great job, Tegan. That is, you did a very hard thing. And so thank you so much for sharing that with me. So that is the I Did a Hard Thing segment. If you want to submit your hard thing, go on to CBT School Campus, the Facebook group. It's a closed group, so you will have to ask to be in the group, but I haven't had any issue with accepting all the people who want to be in the group. It's a wonderful, supportive community. So yay, there's your I Did a Hard Thing segment. Let's go on to the episode. And this is one I am so passionate about. So very, very passionate about. Okay. So you guys know me, and you know probably a lot of interviews I've done on other podcasts, and I talk a lot about self-compassion and the importance of self-compassion, and how it can really help us with our recovery, with depression, anxiety, self-esteem. It's such an important thing. But if you have had an issue with this concept, if you've had major roadblocks and you keep scratching your head trying to figure out why it's not easy for you, you are not alone. In any way, you're not alone. So many people have reached out to me and shared how self-compassion just feels like something they will never conquer and never be able to achieve. And if that is the case for you, oh man, I hear you. It's hard. There are multiple roadblocks to self-compassion. Some people feel like it's weak. Some people feel like if they're kind and compassionate that they'll let themselves go. Some people feel they don't deserve it. Some people think that if they're nice and kind to themselves, that makes them vulnerable to bad things happening. And all of those concerns, I think, are common. And I'm not going to say they're valid because they're not true, but I totally understand the nature of them and the origin of them. So what I wanted to do is, if you are someone who is struggling with self-compassion, and I think that's all of us, I'm going to give you an alternative goal. And that alternative goal, if you're really having a difficult time, or maybe you're wanting a little bit of a stepping stone towards self-compassion, what I'm going to encourage you to do is lean towards self-respect. Start with self-respect, because what we're talking about here isn't the presence of loving kindness and compassion, but self-respect, in my mind, is the absence of saying unkind things. It's the absence of being unkind and lacking in compassion. So I have here some questions for you. I did a little bit of preparation this week, and I have some questions that you may want to ask yourself, and you may even want to write them down. If you can, stop and doing what you're doing and write these questions down so you can self-reflect later, because these questions might help you to come to a place where you can make that first step towards self-respect. Right? Self-respect being that you treat yourself well, you treat yourself in a respectful and kind way, and there is the absence of disrespect. And so here's the first question. The first question I'm going to ask you is, when you reflect on the day, do your behaviors represent or reflect self-respect? Is how you treat yourself, the way you act, is that a respectful action? Because there we will find what might be getting in the way of your self-compassion too. So the first question is, again, do my behaviors represent or reflect self-respect? Okay, so number 2 is, do my behaviors, the actions you do, the way you act throughout the day, do my behaviors respect my core values, because self-respect has a lot to do with values. The truth is, what you think is self-respectful might be different to what I think is self-respectful, and that's totally fine. And that's because our values are different, right? And that's totally fine. We all have different values. You might prioritize taking care of others. I might prioritize being someone who shows up for their faith. You might prioritize hard work as a value, and I might prioritize calm, peaceful moments as a value. So it's okay that our values are different. They're neither good nor bad. But do the behaviors we do respect my values? Because I will talk about this a little bit later here in this episode, because when we don't act in line or congruent to our values, we tend to not feel good about ourselves. And when we don't feel good about ourselves, we usually treat ourselves in an unkind way. So question number 2 is, do my behaviors respect my values? So this might actually mean that you have to sit down and really address what are my values, right? I know I've done podcasts on this in the past, but what are my values? What do I value? What are my beliefs? Which moves me right into number 3, which is, do my behaviors respect my beliefs? Maybe your moral beliefs, your spiritual beliefs. Am I acting in a way that respects those beliefs? Now, let's just put a pause on here for a second. If you're finding you're saying no to these, that's okay. We're here just to learn. No one's great at this. And my hope is to bring you to a place where you can identify the areas that you may want to change. And that if you do identify areas you want to change or that you think might be helpful to change, don't freak out. It's okay. You can do one at a time. I don't want you to leave here feeling overwhelmed and worse than how you came, right? So again, think of this as just a little inventory. It's totally okay if this is new and hard, right? Actually, I'll stop here again. I was just speaking with a client about this yesterday, and I posted on social media about this, that this is our first rodeo here on earth. We're all virgins to living on this earth in terms of this is all new to us. We haven't done it. This is our first time. It's my first time being a parent. It's my first time being a therapist. It's my first time being a wife. You're not expected to be great at this stuff, right? It's my first time being a child. It's my first time being an adult. You're not expected to be great at this. And what happens is when we learn where we have areas where we can improve, that's really all it is. It's just, this is areas I can improve, right? So I just want to do a little check-in here because I don't want you feeling overwhelmed and bad. Okay, so we've got number 1, do my behaviors represent self-respect? Number 2, do my behaviors respect my values? Number 3, do my behaviors respect my beliefs? Next one, number 4, is, do my behaviors allow me to achieve my goals and my values? Because this is a really, really great one. I love to check in with myself because I'm chugging along during the day, doing the best I can. And every now and then I will check in with myself and I'll say, good job on, trying hard. You're doing a hard thing and you're being a human and, good for you. But then I'll check in with how effective my behaviors are. So here's an example. I overdo the multitasking. Something I'm working on. I know. I need to be better at this. And so sometimes if I have a break between clients, let's say I have a 1 or 2 minute break, what I do is I jump on my computer and I check an email and I write an email back. And I'm like, great, I feel great. I'm doing a behavior that lines up with my values because my values are to be productive. But sometimes there is a conflicting, complete opposite value, which is self-care. I also really value self-care. And if I'm multitasking in that 1 or 2 minutes and I check my email, When I open my email up, it might be stressful. There might be something that's an emergency, and now I'm stressed. And it's not enough time for me to really address an important email. So sometimes our behaviors, while we are doing it in line up with our values, they can actually be very ineffective. And so here's an example where I had to address a behavior and say, okay, multitasking between my clients, it doesn't actually help me to achieve my goals in the long term. I'm not as present for my clients if I do that. I'm stressed if I do that. And it doesn't help me. It doesn't help me be effective at my long-term goals. And when I do that, when I quickly jump in and steal a moment to write an email, I'm actually not being self-respectful. There's not a lot of self-respect in that moment because I'm not treating myself in a way that is kind and realistic and effective. It actually makes me feel not so great about myself because now I'm stressed. Now I've got too much going on. So big topic. I could probably do a whole podcast on that one alone. So the question again is, does this behavior allow me to achieve my long-term goals and values? And then we come to number 5, which is, where are some times where I have felt a true sense of self-respect? I want you to reflect back. When do you remember feeling like you were treating yourself with respect? And I want you to hold on to those moments and really spend some time being with that feeling that you have as you reflect, and ask yourself, where might I do some more of that? How can I implement more of that? Because again, the more we practice self-respect, the closer we get to feeling better about who we are. And then the more likely you are to come to a place where you feel like you deserve self-compassion. A lot of the time, again, we're not practicing self-compassion because we don't feel like we deserve it. And self-respect can help us get there. It's a stepping stone. And the last question here is, do my behaviors lead me towards a sense of mastery? Now, this is a great subject. Mastery is a topic that I have been really researching more and more. I'm really drawn to it because I think that our sense of mastery has a lot to do with our sense of self, our sense of respect, right? When we feel like we master something, it doesn't have to be something grand, but if I'm with my son and he's 3 and he masters a tool, maybe he's learning to use scissors or trace letters. The mastery is what gives him motivation to keep trying. It gives him a real sense of independence. It gives him a real sense of pride. And when we're in that mindset, we are so more likely to take on the world. We feel so much more powerful and inspired. And I really want you guys to step into that sense of mastery more, because I do think that it's a vessel to move us towards self-respect and self-compassion, right? So again, I'll ask the question, does my behavior lead me towards a sense of mastery in one situation or another? It's okay if it doesn't, but these are questions, again, that we can ask ourselves to help us be effective in our behaviors, in our cognitions, in our spirituality, in our existence, in our whole humanness. Okay. And so these questions are, again, a way to reflect on where we can make changes. Now, let's keep looking here, because I think the questions are really helpful when we're addressing this. Okay, let me just throw in a 7th question now that I'm here, right? Is another really good thing I think that we need to address is how maybe am I damaging my sense of self-respect? What behaviors do I do that might be getting in the way? How am I reducing my self-respect? And let me give you some examples here, which you might resonate with, maybe you won't, but hopefully they can help you move towards a place of really treating yourself and as a respectful human being. Because you are. You deserve self-respect. We all do. We all deserve to be treated equally and respectfully and be considered as important, because you're all incredibly important. So when we look at the question, this new question number 7, which is how am I damaging our self-respect? This might come up in the form of when we don't act in line with our values. That, again, it really diminishes self-respect. When let's say we might really value our health, but we're not taking care of ourselves, right? That is interpreted in our mind as a lack of self-respect. And then we feel bad about ourselves. Another really important one here on how we act in a way that damages self-respect is when we act helpless. Now, acting or seeing ourselves as a victim in situations when we're not a victim. So I don't want to say like if you actually are a victim, that's a different story. But when we treat ourselves as a victim, or we treat ourselves and tell ourselves that we're hopeless when things actually aren't, or when we're helpless and things actually aren't, that is interpreted as very demeaning, and it really lacks self-respect, right? And it can keep us locked then. And this is a big thing I talk with my clients about, is some of the time the reason that we struggle with self-compassion is because we're stuck in a cycle of helplessness. We're stuck in a mindset of no one can help me. Nothing can help me. I'm a lost cause. And we take on the role of a victim, right? Like my OCD is so much, I'll never be able to beat it. Or my depression, there's just no point. I'll never be able to get better. And that in and of itself reduces a sense of self-respect, because self-respect is about holding ourselves in a powerful place, knowing that we deserve to be taken care of. We deserve to live a good life, that we can stand up and do that for ourselves, right? Be independent and strong. Again, let me put a pause here. It's okay. I don't want you to feel bad if you're stuck in this cycle. You're definitely not alone. And it's the nature of depression. It's the nature of some of these disorders. They really bully us. They really take away what we have as our own sense of self. They can take that away from us. But what we want to do here is move again towards, getting in its way, right? And saying, back off. I can drive from here. I can take it. And so these are points here that I want to address to help you see where we get stuck, right? And how we can make moves in that direction. So I have a list here that I came up with on some ideas about how you might approach self-respect in the future. And they're little ideas. They're not huge things. So they're things you could maybe implement every day or here and there as you feel comfortable, okay? So number 1, an example of a way that you could practice self-respect is number 1, standing up for what you believe in. That's a great example. So let's say you're in a situation and something's going down and you don't like the way it's going down. You might stand up for your what you believe in. Let me give you an example of this. I may have actually given this example in the past, but I'm going to use it because I feel very good about this. This brings a sensation in my body of feeling really powerful and really, really good. I have a really good feeling about this event that happened. So I was at my daughter's dance class, and she's in her dance class, and I'm sitting outside. I'm actually doing some work on my laptop, and there's some kids waiting around for their class while my daughter was in her class. And one of the dance teachers comes out and starts telling one of the parents about how she's in this great fasting diet and how she's so excited because she's losing all this weight and she doesn't eat except for these shakes and, great. Every man for themselves, that's fine if that's what she wanted to do. But I immediately got triggered and I thought, oh my goodness, Do you see that all these young female girls are standing right here and they're impressionable right now? This is the age where they start thinking about losing weight and that their body's not good enough. And this is just really, really not a good place. It's not the right time and it's not the right place. And so very calmly, I took a breath and I stood up and I very gently and effectively said to her, listen, I respect you. You get to say what you want to say. You get to act however you want to act. But I really want to make you aware of the fact that what you're saying could really adversely affect the young ears around you. So please just keep that in mind next time you're talking about diets. Right? So I didn't yell, I wasn't mean, I didn't say any unkind words, but I really stood up for what I believe in. And when I think about a time where I really stood up and had a sense of self-respect, that was the time. I loved that moment because I did it kindly, but I was really effective in standing up for what I believe in. Another example of where you could practice self-respect is asking for something that you need. Saying, listen, I'm really cold and the window's open, and instead of just saying that and hoping someone closes the window, I am going to say, would anyone mind if I close this window? So I'm asking to get my needs met, and I'm doing it in a kind and respectful way. A third one is voting. Now, I live in Australia, and in Australia, you actually have to vote. You get a fine if you don't, right? But in America, you don't have to vote. You can vote if you want to. But I really love voting because there's a really respectful piece here and mastery here of feeling like I got my needs and my voice heard. It's a really great way to practice self-respect. Another example might be being there for a friend, showing up, and acting in your values, right? So yeah, it would be great to just not show up and instead go to the movies. But sometimes when we do really value that connection and we know that this is a time where they really need us, maybe being there for a friend is a really great way to practice self-respect and doing something you value. Now, completely on a paradoxical to that is prioritizing your needs before others. Right? That's another really important way to practice self-respect. Being able to say no, I am not going to go to that Christmas party, or no, I'm very sorry, I can't help today. And so setting that boundary and prioritizing our needs is probably, of all of these examples, in my opinion, one of the most important. Setting aside time for self-care, setting aside time for a hobby. Now, quick note here. I don't want you to misinterpret that this means that you're going to assert power all the time. This is sort of like something we have to manage and juggle, right? So there will be times where you'll feel like the self-respect will be being there for a friend. Others, you might find it's prioritizing others. But I don't want you to think that you have to be respectful, that you always have to be powerful and in control and making the right decision, because that's definitely not what I'm saying, right? Okay. Another example of self-respect would be trusting yourself. Trusting yourself. Believing in your own dreams and hopes and good morals and values and just your existence. Trusting yourself. And if that's too triggering for you, one thing I love to do is just trust the universe. Believe that the universe has my back, right? There's a real sense of respect there that you are holding a space for yourself to believe in your future, right? To believe that, not only bad things will happen to you. Because note to self here, and everyone give me an amen, is people who have depression and anxiety tend to catastrophize a lot of the time. They tell ourselves and others, and they're always telling the story that bad things are going to happen. only bad things can be my future. If I'm not in control, everything's going to go down the drain. So there is an important piece here around trust. And this is a really hard one. Again, probably a podcast for the future, but one that I want you to consider. Okay, I have 3 more examples. The next one is not apologizing for yourself all the time. That is a true form of self-respect. Now, you don't have to apologize for sneezing. You don't have to apologize for needing things, having needs. You don't have to apologize for needing support. You don't have to apologize for your disorder. You don't have to apologize because you're crying. You don't have to apologize because you take up space on this universe. You deserve to be here. You deserve to take up space. You deserve to have a hard time. You're a human. This is your right. In practicing not apologizing, you are practicing self-respect. If you're someone who apologizes all the time, this is where you might want to go back and really address number 7, the question we address, which is, how am I damaging self-respect? Because this is one of them. Okay, the next one is honesty. Sometimes when we're not honest, we walk away feeling pretty bummed about it. We feel like we didn't really show up and we weren't authentic. We didn't tell the truth. We didn't really show up and give ourselves permission to be the imperfect humans that we are. So I do encourage you guys to practice being really honest, right? Not brutally honest. I did not say brutally honest. I'm talking about authentic honesty, okay? Last example. One thing is that we can do, particularly if we are really sensitive, is we lash out at other people because, let's say, you've just got so much anxiety in your body and you're irritable, or like I said, you're feeling really sensitive and hurt. We do tend to lash out, and we lash out before we check the facts. And when we do that, we usually tend to walk away feeling not so good, right? We walk away feeling really embarrassed, and there's, that self-respect meter, the self-respecter meter goes down, right? Let me give you an example of a recent experience I had with this. So just recently, my school sent an email on a Wednesday to say that the school was closing on Friday early. So here I am. I had 2 days to scramble to figure out how I could either rearrange my schedule at work and change my client schedule, which isn't easy for my clients, or arrange a babysitter, or figure out how am I going to figure this out? What a disaster. And I think to myself immediately, like, what the heck, man? You're only giving me 2 days of notice? This isn't cool. 2 days? That's not enough. I'm a working mom. I have a lot going on. This is not cool, right? So I get on the phone and I call them, and I'm kind. I'm not going to lie. I'm mostly kind, but I'm upset. And I say, listen, I get that you're running a huge school and there's a lot going on, and I can't hold you to the expectation that you'll be perfect because you're human too. But I would really love if you could give us more than 2 days notice. That's ridiculous, right? How could I function if you're only going to give me 2 days notice, right? And then the principal says, well, here are the places we actually did tell you, right? Right? It was on the front gate. It was on the sign-in sheet. There was an email sent a month ago. And they did apologize that it was very low on the email, but they did give me evidence that they did share, right? Now, the cool thing is this was a really great interaction because they said, you are right. We really need to send an email and have it at the top of the email so that parents are aware, because it's really easy to rush out of the school without looking at the bulletin board, right? But the thing here is I lashed out before checking the facts. And it's a really important tool that we check our facts before we do that, right? Because when we check the facts, we don't lash out, right? And when we don't lash out, we don't walk away feeling like, bad about ourselves. right? And when we do check the facts and we act in this cordial, respectful way, we feel like we have self-respect for ourselves, right? Now, they're just some examples, right? Again, hey, you heard me. I'm not good at this stuff either. I'm super, super imperfect. So let's just use this as an inventory, as an opportunity to really look at self-respect as a goal and as a stepping stone towards self-compassion, which I think is ultimately the end goal, which is loving kindness, radical self-compassion, gentleness, right? If we can get there, then we're really doing well. And this is another tool in your toolkit to help you get there. So I hope that's been helpful. It's something I'm super passionate about, like I said. So go and let me know, right? If you're on Instagram or Facebook, tag me with the things that you're working on. You can tag me on Instagram at CBT School. On Facebook, you can go, it's Kimberly Quinlan, CBT School. Absolutely let me know where you're at on this journey, right? And I hope that's been helpful, right? So, okay, have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I will talk to you very, very soon. Please note that this podcast or any other resources from cbtschool.com should not replace professional mental health care. If you feel you would benefit, please reach out to a provider in your area. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for supporting cbtschool.com.